Writing a dynamic and compelling character is no easy feat. Writing one that's also a child or a young adult is even more challenging. Often, kids in video games are a nuisance, or used as a device to emotionally manipulate players into feeling for the game's protagonist. But in some cases, the most interesting or complex character in a game is one of a younger age, leaving a lasting impact on audiences more so than they expected. So today we're taking a look at some of those characters and counting down our picks for the top 10 kids in video games. Starting us off in at number 10, Tails from the Sonic franchise. Tails is one of the most iconic kids in a video game. For the most part, many of the characters in the Sonic franchise are young, but Tails has always had that younger brother feel as Sonic's sidekick. Miles Tails Prower is a fox cub, who prior to meeting Sonic was bullied because of his tail abnormality, from which he gets his nickname. And throughout the games he goes from being a timid character to an increasingly more confident one, and a hero in his own right, showing an exceptional amount of mechanical proficiency that often aids Sonic and their pals when going up against the threats of Dr. Robotnik. Outside of the Sonic universe, many a fan of the Genesis games will remember when Tails was introduced in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 as the Player 2 character, and many a kid would play as Sonic and have their younger siblings play as Tails, which to most correlates the character with a wonderful heaping dose of nostalgia. From one anthropomorphic character to the next, in at number 9, Diddy Kong. Diddy Kong is the Tails to Donkey Kong's Sonic. He first appeared in 1994's Donkey Kong Country and is described as DK's best bud, his sidekick, and his nephew wannabe. And compared to his older counterpart, he really does look a lot like a kid. Originally he was intended to be Donkey Kong's son, a new take on the Donkey Kong Jr. character. But after Nintendo wasn't really feeling the changes that developers Rare had made to DK Jr., they decided to rebrand the character entirely as something new. Enter Diddy Kong. And fun fact, Diddy's name in the UK is slang for small, not to be confused with the slang term Diddy, D-I-D-D-I-E, which means something else entirely. That's also dirty. Moving on, and at number 8, Jimmy Hopkins. Bully may be one of Rockstar's older games, but it's long had a place in the hearts of fans. It also pissed off a whole lot of people at the time for glorifying bullying. Anywho, the protagonist of the game is Jimmy Hopkins, a tough-as-nails kid who transfers to Bullworth Academy, a private school that is rotting with bullies. Jimmy ends up uniting all the school's cliques, and finds himself taking down the biggest bully of them all, a snide, slightly unstable, sociopath little motherfucker named Gary. Rockstar's aim with the game was to recreate the state of being a child and make it enjoyable for players, and it worked. From skateboarding around the town to taking classes and pulling pranks, Jimmy is one of the most fun protagonists to play, and there's many a fan out there who sincerely hopes that the game will eventually get a sequel. In at 7, Alice from Detroit Become Human. One of our more recent characters on our list, Alice is the child that you accompany in one of the 3 storylines in Detroit Become Human. At the start of the game, you're introduced to her as the daughter of your human master, who is physically abused by Daddy Dearest. Playing as android Kara, you make the decision to escape from her father, by either running away from his violent advances or by straight up murdering him. From there on out, you're on a journey to get away to someplace safe where the two of you can carry on a normal life together. And much of Kara's arc is establishing your mother-daughter relationship with the girl. Kara's ending though, depending on the route you take, is also one of the most emotional conclusions in the game, with the potential of having a happy ending with Alice or an utterly tragic one. And trust us, it is a tearjerker. Speaking of games made by David Cage, and at number 6, Heavy Rain. Press X to Jason!
Jason! Jason! Jason! Jason! Jason! Jason!
Oh Jason, you met such a tragic end, but gave us so much in the short amount of time that you were with us. Jason is the son of protagonist Ethan Mars, who at the start of the game is a complete little shit and runs off through the mall. For whatever reason, Jason decides to run outside of the mall and into the street, where a car then strikes him and you, as Ethan jumps in the way to save his boy. Don't ask us how the game got to that conclusion though, when the jump looks like this. Clearly Ethan would have died. Anywho, there's a hilarious level in the game where you roam the mall, pressing the X button to call out Jason, which has spawned a whole meme, often mocking developer David Cage and Quantic Dream for how silly and melodramatic the whole thing was, especially since events take a turn for the worse for Ethan from then on out. His life essentially sucks, and also gonna killed. And at number 5, Young Link. The Legend of Zelda franchise revolves around one of the most prominent protagonists in video game history, Link. The character has appeared through different life stages over the years, most famously in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, being the embodiment of the hero of Time's adventures as a child. Referred to as Young Link only in the Super Smash Bros. Series, this Link was eventually replaced with Toon Link in those games. But in the overall Legend of Zelda franchise, much like the older Link, he's a character of few words, but often that's one of the traits that players have found make him so endearing, allowing them to better see themselves in his shoes. Or boots, rather. Moving on to number 4, Red from Pokemon. Pokemon is one of the longest running, most popular franchise in the video game industry. The playable character Red is just a young kid when he leaves home to start his Pokemon adventure, departing from Pallet Town and traveling around Kanto collecting gym badges and catching them all, with the goal of becoming a Pokemon master. His age and your rival's age it has spawned a long-running theory that the world of the game is one that recently survived through a Pokemon war, in which many of the adults were killed off, explaining why so few of them actually exist in the cities and routes you traverse through. There's a whole lot of kids that you find on the road that are alone, and then you end up battling. And then Lieutenant Surge, one of the most prominent adults in the game, flat out mentions a war when you face him at his gym. Anyway, while Red is very much a character that the player projects themselves upon, many players associated the character with Ash Ketchum, the character of a similar age that was made popular by the Pokemon anime. Up next at 3, Clementine from The Walking Dead. Moving into much more emotional territory for this number here with Clementine from Telltale's The Walking Dead. When we were first introduced to Clementine, she was an 8-year-old girl who joins up with the Season 1 protagonist Lee, acting as a moral compass of sorts. In later seasons she becomes playable, with the character's development making critics and fans alike sincerely care about her fate, a feat that isn't easy to accomplish. Smarter than she lets on, Clementine's journey has her coming to terms with the idea that the concepts of good and evil continuously grow more and more meaningless in this new zombie-ridden world, yet she still retains an innocence that players found compelling. Up next, number 2, Atreus from God of War. The God of War franchise made some major moves with the introduction of a new character in Kratos' story.
Boy, look at me, boy. No place for a boy.
Atreus, his son, brought out a whole new layer of character development for the vengeance-ridden hero, who by the end of the game has not just taught the boy how to survive, but has learned a thing or two from his son himself. Atreus has inherited some of his dad's more negative traits, including his rage, which Kratos tries to teach him how to master. On the flip side of that, he's also very compassionate, showing a devotion to his father that makes for some of the game's greatest moments.
Back, boy. Not our concern, boy. What is it, boy?
Expect to see Atreus return in the inevitable God of War sequel. Fans have already spawned theories about what may go down as their story continues to explore the Norse mythology. And Atreus' end-of-game reveal, spoiler alert, maybe skip ahead now if you don't want to know how the game ends.
Run, boy! Run, boy! Boy, you're a nice boy. Jump, boy! Keep shooting, boy!
The fact that he was meant to be named Loki along with his half-god, half-giant heritage is sure to make an impact in future plots of the games. And finally, and at number 1, Ellie from The Last of Us. Ellie has been hailed as one of the most important characters in contemporary video games. For starters, she's a young woman in a video game with a significant amount of character development, which, even back in 2013, was pretty rare. She was likable, strong, complex, and subverted the damsel in distress trope. Then, in the DLC Left Behind, it was revealed that she is also a queer character, something that will be further explored in the upcoming Last of Us sequel. But perhaps the thing that resonated the most with players concerning Ellie is her relationship with Joel, and how it evolved over the traumatic events that the two endured while on their journey. She's also playable at one point, and based on the trailers for the game's follow-up sequel, in which she's now a young adult, it looks as if she's graduating to the series' main protagonist. Also, shout out to Joel's actual daughter Sarah, who emotionally crippled us all at the start of the game with her death. Really, she's the one to thank for Joel fostering such a compelling relationship with Ellie after all. Alright, there we have it friends, which of these characters is your favorite? What other kids and video games made an impact on you? Give us a shout in those comments below and let us know. If you dug this video, hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe to Top 10 Gaming for more video game lists, news, highlights, and more. In the meantime though, thanks for watching everybody, I'll catch you all in the next video.